Absurdist comedy is a form of humor predicated on deliberate violations of causal reasoning, thus producing events and behaviors that are obviously illogical. Basically, anything that doesn't make sense could be classified as absurdist comedy. Hearing this definition probably made you think of at least one show or movie that you've watched before. I Think You Should Leave, anything Monty Python, and even a regular show are all solid examples. But recently, I think what we define as good absurdist comedy has fallen a good bit. Today I want to discuss what makes good and bad absurdist comedy and maybe learn a few things along the way. And also, since we're analyzing humor, every joke that I reference is going to be significantly less funny than it would be if you just watched the show. Because I'm not a comedian, I just make YouTube videos sometimes. Anyways, I recognize that the viewpoint I'm about to express is a little controversial, so I hope that if you disagree with me here, you'll hear me out and let me explain my point. The first time I watched The Eric Andre Show, I had already heard a bit about it, and I laughed my ass off. Not because I thought it was funny, but because everyone around me was laughing their ass off, and I assumed that they were smarter than me and I just wasn't funny enough to get the jokes. Then, I aged another 5 years, and when hanging out with some friends, watched it again, and to my surprise, I still didn't find it funny. At all. So, I decided to take a deeper look at it. Was it a problem with my humor, or with the show itself? I tried Googling reviews on the show, and just about everyone completely disagreed with me, which also kind of made me feel like an idiot. Every review was just saying, oh, it's absurdist humor, not everyone gets absurdism. And of course, I don't want to be the guy who doesn't get it, so this didn't satisfy me. So, I looked even deeper, and I discovered that, while at first glance, The Eric Andre Show does seem like a true absurdist comedy, honestly, I don't think it is. First, a quick rundown of Eric Andre's show. The Eric Andre Show is a parody of the typical late-night show, complete with real celebrity interviews and man-on-the-street gags. The twist is that he completely terrorizes everyone on his show. He'll take a shit right in front of them on his desk, he'll completely destroy the desk he just took a shit on, he'll ask them ridiculous questions, whatever he's feeling that day. This barrage of jokes lasts about 11 minutes, and then you're released from the chaos. The show has been running for 12 years, so you'd expect people to love it, and they do. And first, I do want to give some credit to The Eric Andre Show because the concept is relatively creative, and the execution is also fairly creative. It does take energy to think of so many little bits to do, and to build giant sets just to destroy them. But there are also flaws that I want to point out today. Most comedy comes from subversion of your expectations, essentially doing whatever you're not expecting. We can talk about this with what is essentially the most famous joke of all time. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. When you hear the first part of the joke, you're expecting a reason that's going to surprise you. So, something as logical as to get to the other side surprises you in an entirely different way. You expected a funny reason, and you got a logical one. Your expectations have been subverted. It's pretty simple, right? But how does this apply to Eric Andre? I'll give you a hint. The very first episode of this show works. The very first one. Or any episode, as long as it's the first episode you're watching. You got it yet? The Eric Andre Show, most of the time, does not have a setup contained within itself. It is punchline after punchline with no setup. So, how can the first episode work? Well, the setup is all other talk shows that have ever existed. Everyone has seen talk show clips before, everyone has seen their favorite celebrity on Conan or Jimmy Fallon or whatever the hell. So when they see a talk show clip, they expect it to be a talk show clip. A normal talk show clip. They especially expect this because they actually see their favorite celebrity on the show. They actually got Seth Rogen or Tyler the Creator or whoever else, so it has to be legit, right? So, when they click on the first episode of The Eric Andre Show, expecting to see a normal talk show clip, and they receive the complete absurdity that he delivers, their expectations are subverted. But what happens when they click on episode 2? When you decide to watch episode 2, you're expecting more absurdity. And then, what do you get? More absurdity. Your expectations have been delivered to you. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I would argue that it's definitely less funny. Based on everything I just told you, let's take a look at a clip of the Eric Andre show.
You're a staunch anti-masker.
No, I'm not.
That's what it said in my notes.
That's not true.
It said it online.
No, do not spread malicious rumors like that. I'm not an
It
anti-masker.
says right here in my notes that you're anti-mask.
I'm triple vaxxed.
I saw one of those sex ed videos you did. Sure, I learned a ton, but what high school is buying those?
Oh.
You were a Muslim woman in a porno, and then ISIS threatened to Charlie Hebdo you.
Yeah.
And then you tweeted back at ISIS, you can take this hijab and shove it.
I did not. I did not. You're gonna get me killed.
What were you expecting? Absurdity. And that's what you got. You may have still found it a bit funny, but you did get what you expected. Me, personally, I don't really find it funny at all. My sense of humor can be a bit off sometimes, though, so I'm not going to pretend that this is evidence that the show isn't funny. I do, however, want to take a look at a joke from the show that I think does work, and a joke that made me genuinely laugh when I watched it.
Ladies and gentlemen, so glad to have him back, Beyonce and Jay-Z! Woo! Baby, you look beautiful.
Sure, not drop-dead hilarious, but funny. Why is this funny? Or maybe you don't think this is funny either, but I did, so try to humor me so I don't feel like a total idiot. This moment surprised me. From every clip I had seen of Eric Andre, he had the real celebrities on the show. If he can get Jack Black, he can get anyone. So, seeing that he was lying about Jay-Z and Beyonce coming on surprised me. And the fact the impersonators didn't even look a little bit like the real people was even more surprising. That joke worked because I was genuinely expecting the exact opposite of what happened. I laughed. I know, right? Me, the god of comedy. But most of the time, stuff that happens in the show just isn't surprising. It's true that it's hard to anticipate exactly what's going to happen, but to say that anything that happens on the show is surprising just seems wrong. So, the show does have some good jokes, but in my opinion, a lot of it just drags. Now, to look at a show that I think does absurdism a lot better. Zach Haddle and Michael Cusack's Smiling Friends. I know a lot of people have been praising Smiling Friends for the past couple of years as the best TV they've seen in ages, and I don't want to hop on the hype train too hard, but I do think that the way they do absurdism is incredibly interesting and incredibly effective. Smiling Friends is another example of absurdist comedy, but they do it completely differently. The show follows 4 alien-looking people and their human-adjacent boss as they journey to make as many people smile as they can. Now, it might seem like absurdism would come a lot easier to this style of show, and that's right, because it's animated, and the world doesn't have physical laws like real life does. The animators can do essentially whatever they want, and they do in a lot of cases. Now, already the show is almost more absurdist than the Eric Andre show, simply because, well, look at the screen. Now we're following 4 weird alien creatures instead of 2 real human people. Hell, essentially every character in the Smiling Friends cinematic universe is some sort of wacky character. So, the easy absurdist way to do comedy would just be to have the characters fly around and randomly take shits all over the furniture, and bam, absurdism achieved. But thankfully, Zach and Michael are better than that. Instead, the characters actually act a lot like normal humans a lot of the time, which is where a lot of the comedy comes from. The fact that these insane creatures have such specific similarities to humans is hilarious. Charlie has a light-up gaming computer, Satan plays Rust and vapes, Glep mumbles like a kid having a tantrum after his mom sends him to his room, Alan gets in petty arguments with minimum wage retail employees. Despite being bizarre, non-human creatures, they're human. And the one character who looks the most human, the boss, is one of the most unpredictable characters on the show. Each character and conversation is a stark comparison between the absurd and the mundane, the human and the inhuman parts of life. These juxtapositions are what gives Smiling Friends a lot of its humor. Now, I don't want to overanalyze jokes, because I feel like it makes it less funny, but I have to prove my dumbass point.
Wait, what about the boss?
I don't get it. Shouldn't the curse be broken by now?
Wait, Charlie, I remember reading in that book that the only way to wake someone from the demon's curse is a kiss of true love.
All right, I'll do it for the boss.
I'm just with you. I'm good.
Don't do that shit, man. I've got a heart condition, dude.
Oh, come on, Charlie. Don't be like that.
No, dude, seriously, I have a pacemaker. Like, I don't mind the joke, but just, like, not with the heart stuff. Don't mess with the heart stuff.
What's funny there? The boss morphs his face into a 2010 jump scare to scare Charlie, and he gets pissed off because he has a heart condition. He's a homunculus, and he acts like a 70-year-old man after getting scared because apparently he has a pacemaker. Homunculus that has been to hell before has a heart condition that could kill him if someone jump scared him too hard. Juxtaposition.
Oh, Alan, I actually have a very exciting job for you, too. I just ran out of those little metal things that hold paper together. The F are they called again? You know, the thing that's all like...
Paper clips?
Yeah, that's it. If you could fetch some for me, I might have a special reward for you.
What's the reward?
Well, if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, Alan, now would it?
No, I guess not. Okay, I'm gonna go get those paper clips then.
Cool. I really hurt my finger doing that paperclip bit.
Yeah, no, I saw.
What's funny there? The boss curls his finger into the shape of a paperclip just to demonstrate that he wants a paperclip. And because this act was completely supernatural and not something that any normal human could do, we just sort of accept it. Okay, great. I guess he can just do that with no problems. Great. Then he reveals that it's causing him an absurd amount of pain. That's fucking funny. The contrast between his superhuman ability and his seemingly average tolerance for pain is hilarious. If he feels pain like a normal guy, why the hell would he fold his finger into a paperclip? The joke isn't just the fact that he folded his finger into a paperclip or the fact that he's feeling pain. It's both. Juxtaposition. The humor of the show, in my opinion, lies entirely upon these juxtapositions. And I'm sorry for saying juxtaposition so often here. The show requires you to accept the absurd, surreal stakes of the situation just to flip you on your head. One moment you're watching a mad scientist scream over his goal of creating life inside an egg, and the next you're watching his roommate yell at him because he's trying to watch a movie with his girlfriend. These two situations, right next to each other, is what makes Smiling Friends so funny. Take away the realistic parts of it, and you have the Eric Andre Show. Take away the absurdity, and you have the mundane awkwardness of Andy Kaufman. But combine them, and the whole game changes. Absurdism in comedy done right relies on these comparisons, between the expected and the unexpected, the logical and the illogical. When you take a show like the Eric Andre Show, you'll get no logic at all. Which is good for just a minute or two, but as soon as you realize that all you're getting is a lack of logic, you accept that fact, and it all becomes logical, and it can become stale. So, what's the solution? Change it up a little. Find ways to surprise the audience. Let them breathe for a bit before launching another onslaught of jokes, which is exactly what Smiling Friends has accomplished. In my opinion. And thank you for watching, subscribe, and like, and comment, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you later.